The title of this one pretty much says it all. As I was watching the most recent episode of Black Clover, it all just kinda clicked for me. Why is it that Cinder's newfound power comes with such a crippling weakness, that of the maiden powers? Why is it that Salem's a little bit hesitant of the Silver Eyes herself? Well, there is one thing that Salem and the maiden powers have in common. Magic. So could the Silver Eyes be a form of anti-magic? Now, it's already been well established in the RWBY series that the Silver Eyes are first and foremost an anti-Grimm weapon. What with Maria's backstory, having her freeze a Nevermore and turn it to dust, essentially, and then RWBY's Silver Eyes only activating in response to the Dragon Grimm at the end of Volume 3, Cinder's Grimm arm at the end of Volume 5, and then, of course, the apathy in the Leviathan in Volume 6. Now, of course, you could also say that, well, Cinder now has her Grimm arm, as shown in Volume 5. That's the Silver Eyes reacted to it. And Salem has her Grimm corruption. That could be the reason why they are both a little bit hesitant and afraid of the Silver Eyes. But at the beginning of Volume 4, when Watts was berating Cinder about losing to some little girl that should have been easy for her to defeat, even without the maiden powers. But with the maiden powers, just a quick snap of the fingers and RWBY should have been incinerated. But Salem chimes in and says it was because of the maiden powers that Cinder lost, that her newfound powers come with a crippling weakness. And they were just discussing around the table that of the Silver Eyes. So it's easy to make that implication that it's the Silver Eyes that are that crippling weakness for the maiden powers. The maiden powers being magic, its polar opposite, and weakness, anti-magic. Now, of course, anti-magic hasn't really been established in the RWBY series, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was the case. But then, how exactly is it that the Silver Eyes are mostly an anti-Grimm weapon? Well, to answer that question, we need to go back to the beginning, or at least as far back as we can go in the RWBY series so far. That of Salem and Ozpin's backstory, the first go-round of humanity when the gods still roamed the earth, or at least the gods of light and darkness, the only ones that we know in the RWBY series so far. I'd be interested to see if there were others, but still. Now, the gods created humanity and gifted them magic. I don't know if it was mentioned that they were gifted a small portion of their power or whatever, but we have not been given an exact definition of what magic is in the RWBY series, just that it's, you know, pretty much the power to manipulate the elements and things like that, but not, you know, a concrete definition. So let's assume that the gods gifted humanity a little bit of magic, a little bit of the power that they have. So the gods themselves have just an obscene amount of magic, that which allows them to create life, to transform themselves into dragons and fly off into God knows where in outer space, not to mention bring back the dead or travel between dimensions, as we saw with the God of Light traveling to meet Ozma in the afterlife. So let's assume that they have just a whole bunch of magic, which I don't think is much of a jump, but correct me if I'm wrong if they have a different power, or, you know, let me know down in the comments below. But if they have an obscene amount of magic, and their pools of light and darkness both have powers in and of themselves created by the gods of light and darkness, they have magic as well. You know, pool of light gifting Salem her immortality, the pool of darkness giving Salem her corruption, not to mention the pool of darkness creating the Grimm. So the gods possess magic, the pools possess magic, Grimm born from the pool, Grimm born from magic. So, if Grimm are actually magical beings, then that makes complete sense as to why the Silver Eyes would react to the Grimm, as well as being a crippling weakness for the maiden powers, because the Grimm are just solely beings of magic, whereas Cinder, having the maiden powers, is just someone who has come to possess magic. But then, how exactly did the Silver Eyes come into being, and why has it developed within humanity? Well, that can probably be answered with something similar to evolution. I'm not exactly sure how evolution works in the RWBY world, in the world of Remnant, but if it's something similar to our world, then when an epidemic or plague or disease wipes out a majority of a population, or I guess in this case most of a population or all, then, you know, evolution evolves to resist what wiped out the previous form. Now, the first go-round of humanity and the current humanity I would consider like two separate entities. So when the God of Darkness gathered up magic, amplified it, and wiped out all of humanity, he might have actually wiped out all life on the planet, but except for, of course, the Grimm. Then with humanity developing then for a second time, having to evolve from nothing, then they would evolve, of course, to resist the threats that are present in their environment. What threats are present currently? Well, the Grimm. Not to mention it was magic that wiped out humanity in the first place, but as they're evolving and, becoming a species in and of themselves, starting to occupy the planet, the Grimm are their biggest threat. So, of course, they would develop ways to fight against them. Of course, they'd unconsciously develop aura. They would start mining dust and trying to find a way to fight against them. But there would be some who would evolve to have a certain aspect in them that would be more, shall we say, fit to live on the planet. Not that, of course, they're being more fit than others. Read up on the theory of evolution and fitness and stuff like that. I can go into it in more detail if there's a desire to. But that being the Silver Eyes being more fit to fight against the Grimm and survive in that world. Now, the Grimm being magic is what obviously triggers the Silver Eyes, and that's what it is meant to fight against. But with the Grimm being magic, that would also mean that any other being of magic would also have a weakness, being the Silver Eyes. Rambled for a little bit, so hopefully this all makes sense, but I'm interested to see if this is actually the case. I wouldn't be surprised knowing that RWBY gets its basis from a lot of different fairy tales, anime, and other aspects that the creators have watched and like, so anti-magic could definitely be a thing, and I'm kind of hoping that that's the case, because it just seems to fit in quite well. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, if you think that anti-magic could actually be what the Silver Eyes actually are, or, what else it could be. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. I'm looking forward to see how people react to this theory, if it makes sense to you guys as well. If you guys have other theories about the Silver Eyes, I would love to hear them. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. There'll definitely be more theory videos coming in the future. So make sure to subscribe if you want more videos like this, and hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next one.